Welcome to the Carolina Digital Phone Learning Hub podcast, where we explore the essential tools and trends shaping businesses of all sizes. In each episode, we discuss the latest technologies and information designed to help you build and grow your business effectively. From innovative communication solutions to emerging digital strategies, our experts provide insights that empower you to navigate today's competitive landscape. Join us as we uncover actionable advice and resources to enhance your business operations and drive success.
All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive today. We're tackling business telephone systems. But don't worry, we're not going to bore you with tech specs and jargon.
Nope, we're getting right to the heart of it, the costs.
Exactly. Think about it. You're setting up your business or maybe reevaluating what you've got. Phone systems, man, so many choices. And the pricing. It's like they try to make it confusing on purpose.
It can be overwhelming, that's for sure. But that's why we're here. We're breaking it all down, simple and clear, so you can actually make smart decisions about your phone system.
Without pulling your hair out.
Exactly.
So let's hit the ground running. Those initial costs, the upfront stuff, that can feel like the biggest hurdle.
It is important to get a grip on those upfront costs. It's helpful to think about them in two main buckets, hardware and software.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's unpack those. Hardware first. It's like walking into a phone store, right? You've got your basic models and then the ones that look like they're from the future. What makes the price jump around so much with hardware?
It really comes down to the type of phone system you go with and the features you need. You've got your VoIP phones. Those are internet-based and pretty flexible. And then there are still the traditional phones, the analog ones.
Analog, wow. People still use those.
More than you might think. Some businesses stick with them. Maybe they've already got the traditional phone line set up, or maybe they just seem simpler. But here's the thing. They can end up being more expensive in the long run. Those service fees can really add up.
That's a good point.
And we can't forget about all the extras. Routers, switches, all that networking gear. That all adds to the upfront cost, too.
So if you're a small business, say 10 employees, what kind of price tag are we talking about for hardware, realistically?
It's a big range, honestly. Depends on what you choose. But you could be looking at anywhere from, I'd say, $500 to $3,000.
Ooh, sticker shock?
Yeah, it could be a chunk of change. But think of it this way. It's a long-term investment. If you get the right hardware up front, you'll save yourself money and hassles down the line.
That's a good way to look at it. Okay, so we got a handle on the hardware side. Now let's switch gears and talk about the software.
Right. Software is like the brains of your whole phone system. It runs everything, all the communication, all the features. And there are generally two ways they sell it: subscriptions and one-time purchases.
Okay, so subscriptions, that's like paying a monthly fee per user. And one-time purchase is, well, you pay once and you own it. What are the pluses and minuses of each? What should businesses be thinking about when they make that choice?
So subscriptions, they give you flexibility. If your business grows or shrinks, you can easily add or remove users. Plus, you usually get automatic updates and support, which is a big plus. Now, with the one-time purchase, it might seem cheaper at first, but you gotta watch out. You might miss out on important updates, and if something goes wrong, the support costs can be killer.
So it's not just about the initial price tag. You got to think long-term.
Absolutely.
So back to those monthly subscriptions. What's a typical cost per user? Ballpark.
Well, it depends on the features, of course, and which provider you go with. But I'd say somewhere between $20 for user per month is pretty standard.
Okay, so we've tackled those initial costs, hardware and software. We've seen that there's a range of options, different price points, and it's super important to think about the long-term costs and any potential risks.
Yeah.
But we've only just scratched the surface. Initial costs are just the beginning, right? What about all those ongoing expenses, the stuff that comes with actually running a business phone system?
Oh, yeah. Those ongoing costs, those are key. Got to work those into your budget for sure. The big one, the one everyone thinks of first, is that monthly service fee. And this is where you'll really see the difference between VoIP and those traditional phone services.
So usually VoIP is going to be the cheaper option.
Most of the time, yeah. VoIP, you're looking at maybe $20 to $40 per line per month. Traditional phone services, hoo boy, you can easily blow past $50 per line. But, and this is a big but, there are some cases where traditional might be the way to go. Like if you've got those old school analog lines for things like alarm systems or credit card processing.
Right, the stuff that just won't work with the internet-based systems.
Exactly. And international calling, that can get pricey with VoIP, so if your business is doing a lot of global stuff, you got to factor that in.
So no easy answers. It depends on the business and what they need.
100%. Got to weigh the pros and cons based on your situation.
Okay, monthly fees, check. What other recurring costs should businesses be keeping an eye on?
Maintenance and support. People forget about this, but it can be a real budget buster. Even with a top-notch system, things happen.
Right. Things break, stuff goes wrong,
Yeah.
and then you've got to scramble to get it fixed.
And you got to know who you're going to call. And how much is it going to cost? That's a big decision. You've got two main paths. Handle it in-house or outsource to a pro.
In-house. So that's having your own IT team.
Yep. And that means salaries, benefits, training, all the costs that come with having employees could be a big expense, but you've got that control.
Whereas outsourcing, you're basically paying a company to handle it for you.
Right. Usually it's a monthly fee, can be a good deal, especially for smaller businesses that don't have the budget for a whole IT department.
So it's a trade-off. Higher upfront costs for in-house, but you're in charge. Or pay someone else to handle it, might be cheaper, but you're relying on them.
Exactly. Businesses got to figure out what works best for them, look at their budget, their internal resources. It's all a balancing act.
Okay, so keeping the system running smoothly, we've got that covered. But now let's think bigger picture. Scalability. Your business is growing, your phone system needs to grow too. How does that play into the costs?
Scalability, that's huge. You don't want to hit a wall with your phone system. New employees, new features, your system has got to be able to handle it.
Growing pains are no fun, especially when it comes to your tech.
So true. So when you're picking a system, think ahead. How much do you plan to grow in the next year, 5 years? Will you need to hook it up with other systems, add new features? These are the questions you got to be asking.
Got to have that crystal ball working over time. So what are some ways to make sure your phone system can keep up without breaking the bank?
Cloud-based systems, they're usually the most flexible for scaling. Adding new users, new features, it's often as simple as tweaking your subscription. Traditional systems, they can be a lot more rigid. Might need to upgrade hardware, and that gets expensive fast.
Sounds like cloud-based systems might be a better bet for long-term flexibility and cost savings.
Often, yes. But again, every business is different. You got to look at what you need, what you can afford. Talking to the experts, getting their advice, that's always a smart move.
Can't argue with that. Speaking of the future, let's talk about upgrades. Tech moves fast. Nobody wants to be stuck with something outdated.
Totally agree. Phone systems, they're no exception. It's essential to plan for upgrades, both hardware and software. Keep it running smooth, keep up with all the new features and security stuff.
Falling behind on upgrades, that can cost you big time in the end. Lost productivity, security risks, it's not worth it.
You got it. You neglect those upgrades, you might end up having to replace the whole system sooner than you thought. And that's going to hurt your wallet.
All right, so we've covered initial costs, ongoing expenses, scalability, upgrades. Phew. But we can't forget about all those fancy features, the things that go beyond just making calls. What about those? How do they affect the bottom line?
That's a great point. Those bells and whistles, they can definitely add to the overall cost. You got to be smart about it. Which features are must-haves for your business and which ones are just nice to have?
Easy to get carried away by all the shiny new things, but those costs, they can sneak up on you.
No doubt. Take faxing, for example. Some industries, like healthcare and legal, they still use faxes a ton. Traditional fax machines, you've got paper, toner, maintenance, it all adds up.
So what's the alternative? Is there a cheaper way to fax these days?
Oh, absolutely. E-faxing. It's all digital. You send and receive faxes right through your email or a website. Way more convenient and so much cheaper. You can find plans for like $10 a month.
Wow, that's a big difference, especially for businesses that are still faxing all the time. What other features should we be thinking about?
Texting. It's become so important for businesses, right? Got to be able to connect with customers, employees. Everyone's texting these days. But adding texting to your phone system, well, there are some costs there too. Software licenses, something called API integration, and maybe even some extra hardware.
Hold on, API integration. That sounds kind of techy. What exactly is an API? Why does it matter for texting?
Okay, so an API, it stands for Application Programming Interface. Basically, it's like a translator. It lets different software systems talk to each other. So in this case, the API lets your phone system connect to those messaging platforms. That's what makes the texting work smoothly.
Ah, okay. So that API cost is basically what makes the magic happen behind the scenes. Got it. So for texting, how much should businesses budget for per user?
It really depends on how many messages you're sending, what features you need, but I'd say generally somewhere between $5 and $25 per user per month.
Okay, so texting, another thing to factor in. What else should businesses be aware of?
Call recording and storage. Lots of businesses need this. Compliance reasons, training, quality assurance, you name it. But all those recordings, they got to go somewhere, and that's where storage costs come in.
Right, makes sense. So are we talking about storing those recordings on site or in the cloud? And how do the costs compare?
Both are options, but these days cloud storage is getting really popular. It's easy to scale up or down as you need, and it can be more cost effective, especially if you're recording a lot of calls. Basic cloud plans, you might find something around $10 a month, but if you need a lot of storage, the price goes up. Oh, and one important tip shop around. Don't just assume you have to get your storage from your phone company. You might find better deals with third-party providers.
Good to know. I wouldn't have thought of that. Now, what about the legal stuff? Are there any extra costs there when it comes to recording calls and storing them?
For sure. You got to make sure you're following all the laws about call recording. Might need to get legal advice or use some compliance software, which can cost money.
Compliance is no joke.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about faxing, texting, call recording. Any other big features we should touch on?
Video conferencing. Can't forget about that. With all the remote work happening these days, it's practically a must-have for most businesses. A lot of VoIP services include some basic video conferencing features in their packages, but if you need more advanced stuff or a separate video conferencing solution, you're probably looking at $15 to $50 per user per month.
It's amazing how much there is to consider when it comes to phone systems. Kind of makes your head spin.
It can be overwhelming, that's for sure. But if you break it down, start with those initial costs, then the ongoing expenses, then think about the features you need, it becomes a lot more manageable.
Right. And that's exactly what we've done today, haven't we? We've dug deep into the costs of business phone systems, hardware, software, monthly fees, all those fancy features.
And we talked about thinking long-term, right? Scalability, upgrades, legal stuff, it's all connected.
And the big takeaway, there's no one perfect solution. The best phone system for you, it depends on your business, how you use it, and of course, your budget.
Exactly. Do your research, compare your options, and don't be afraid to ask for expert advice. That's the key to making the right decision for your business.
Absolutely. All right, as we wrap things up, here's a question to ponder. Take a look at your current phone system. Is it really working for you? Meeting your needs, fitting your budget? Maybe it's time for a change. Something to think about.
It's a good point. Technology is always moving forward. What worked for you a year ago might not be the best choice today.
And for those of you who want to learn even more about business phone systems, check out Carolina Digital Phone's Learning Hub. They've got tons of resources, articles, videos, even podcasts, all about making smart communication choices for your business.
It's a great place to start if you want to dig deeper into this stuff.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of business phone systems.
Always a pleasure.
Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Thanks for joining us on the Carolina Digital Phone Learning Hub podcast. We're eager to hear from you. Whether you have questions about today's topic, suggestions for future discussions, or just want to chat about technology and business, we're here to help. Reach out by emailing inquiry@carolinadigitalphone.com, calling us at 336-544-4000, or clicking the Get Started link at carolinadigitalphone.com. We look forward to talking with you.